Давайте, давайте, давайте!
On the bloody battlefields of Ukraine, communication is everything. Both sides employ sophisticated electronic warfare, jamming each other's comms. But for Ukraine, this handheld radio, developed and built in a matter of months by a small startup, is providing a homegrown solution. Yet another example of how this war is compressing innovation cycles and rewriting the rulebook when it comes to defense procurement.
This was the goal that we kind of put in front of ourselves. Make something that is technologically relevant, and our products right now is used in many of the Ukrainian offensive and defensive operations, but also make it much more scalable and affordable. We were able to use commercial off-the-shelf components, which cost less, which can be supplied much quicker, and allow us to have that kind of combination that so far we didn't see anyone was able to crack. Have a relevant functionality that used by even the most advanced units in Ukrainian defense forces, but also is priced and can be supplied much quicker.
And that lightning-fast development speed is something seen across Ukraine's growing defense sector. Himera has already delivered 6,000 of these radios to the Ukrainian military and is producing around 1,000 handsets a month. All their products tested in real combat conditions, with soldiers providing feedback direct from the front line.
Over the last more than 3 years, we did more than 90 versions of firmware updates, more than 20 versions of hardware, and almost all of those products were either tested on the battlefield or at least at the test range with either internally as the company or with some of the users that were able to join. Anything we would do, we had users who were like, please give it to us, we need it, we need to try, we'll give you the feedback, we want you to do something that we need. Because usually the approach from the defense industrial complex, we made a perfect product. If it doesn't work, you don't know how to use it, it's not us. Our approach at Himera, if it doesn't work, it means we either didn't teach you enough or it doesn't work and we need to make it better. Fairly early, like a bit more than a year into, we existed as a company, and we had a feedback from a soldier that the radios that they were using, they didn't have mesh capability, though the radio didn't act as repeaters. So what they had one of the privates sitting on top of the hill with two radios, listening into one, talking to another, because the two camps couldn't talk to each other. They literally had it wasn't like in winter, so they, the person was freezing there, but that's the only way they could communicate between two like HQs, right? And so this was basically the moment where, okay, we probably need to add mesh capability, we need to add repeater capability. And I think it took us from that call until the launch around 2 weeks.
Himera has developed software that makes these radios immune to jamming, and their mesh system uses low-power repeaters, which are much harder for the Russians to find. All of this tech constantly updated, with input from the soldiers who actually use it.
It's not that actually normal for a manufacturer of a certain product to talk to the end user. They will talk to a general, they will talk to a procurement agent, they will talk to a commander of a brigade sometimes, but it's very rare where I'm as a co-founder, the CEO, have a direct access to the private who has our radios in their hands, and that person will give me not a watered down official report with a signature, but will be very open about telling me all the bad things, actual bad things that we can use to make it better.
The overall capacity of Ukraine's defense industry has rocketed from $1 billion in 2022 to $35 billion now. Kyiv now produces a third of all the weapons and ammunition it uses. And with the US pivoting away from Europe, Ukraine, with years of combat experience, is set to become a major supplier, particularly of drones.
I would expect that many of the future defense unicorns of the world will come from Ukraine. We recently announced a partnership with one of the biggest UGV manufacturers in Ukraine, and I usually need to specify, meaning one of the biggest UGV manufacturers in the world. When you say one of the biggest Ukrainian, UAV manufacturers, you mean one of the biggest UAV manufacturers in the world, and so on. So a lot of those things are already true just with the local Ukrainian market, and being big but still having that iterative startup approach allows you to be very much on top of the game.
Himera recently joined forces with a Canadian firm that specializes in quantum secure data protection, the next evolution in encryption and counter jamming. As NATO countries ramp up military spending, demand for cheaper combat-tested tech will only increase. Ukrainian firms like this, with vast wartime expertise, likely to play a major role in Europe's transition to greater war readiness. Simon Newton, BFBS Forces News. Thanks for watching. For more from BFBS Forces News, like and subscribe to our channel.